sometimes a pelvic floor can be what I call just on vacation, right? It's not really online. It doesn't know how to react when you're asking it to squeeze. And conversely, the pelvic floor can be too tight and gripped. Think of like a hand stuck in a grip position.
You mentioned this thing that we do. We rush to the bathroom and we sort of get this bladder excited. This podcast is for many parents who are listening to it. We often train our children to have to go to the bathroom quickly. And I remember being a parent that said every time before we left the house, we would say, go to the bathroom because, we knew every restaurant bathroom or every supermarket where the bathrooms are located.
Yes.
And in different countries, we know, shopping malls. What are some of the ways now, let's say if we've gotten this habit, we have our children or ourselves in a moment where we're constantly looking for the restroom in order to not be ashamed by having an accident. Now, what can we do at home? Mm-hmm. I think some of it you did already bring up. Train your bladder, but how
Training
do you go from zero to where you need to go?
A lot of times I would say at home is a good place to start, right? Because the idea is you need confidence that it can start to happen. And it's a process, right? I'm not saying overnight, if you have to pee every 45 minutes, tomorrow you're going to be able to go 2 to 3 hours. So you need to start to train it. Now, in general, I was laughing when you were talking because jiffing, that just in case peeing, we often start to do to our kids and early on, getting them in that habit. Now, I will say every once in a while, it's totally fine, right? It's okay to do that if you're going to go on a road trip, let's say, right? You don't want to be stopping every 15 minutes. The problem is when it becomes a habit, when your bladder starts to rule you. And I want people's brain to rule their bladder. And that takes time and that takes confidence. So I mentioned it a little bit, but honestly, in a perfect world, you would just get evaluated by one of us, right? And if not, you can just start to train that bladder. And first of all, just knowing what correct is super helpful. If you didn't know that the bladder could go 2 to 4 hours, just hearing that is really, really a great place to start. And then I would say ease into it. And then if you are somebody that leaks, if you are having that urgent incontinence, again, you qualify for pelvic floor physical therapy. So you should just sort of say, hey, I need this. And if not, allow yourself the ability to really go slowly and gentle with yourself as you train yourself and your bladder.
Now, this question is about new moms. We often have some challenges with pelvic floor. What are some of the challenges new mothers might face in terms of pelvic health?
Wow, this is a great one and very, very dear to my heart because pelvic physical therapy should be the standard of care for any way the baby comes out. If you think about it, being pregnant for almost a year is insane on our bodies. It completely changes our center of gravity, again, for almost a year. And then I like to joke that the baby either comes out the sunroof, hello C-section, or the door, right, vaginal delivery. And that, no matter what, is some amount of physical trauma. And I don't mean trauma in the emotional sense. I just mean that baby has to come out one way. So I really want to get under the notion that treating that earlier and supporting a woman with her return to exercise and not just being sent out into the island alone. Good luck. You're good now. Exercise. In France, for example, it is the standard of care. They get 12 free pelvic visits because, of course, and again, sort of the French also don't have the puritanical background that we do. So of course, we need to get back to having sex and it not being painful. And it's a part of our body that we don't want to have any dysfunction. So I really think that the US needs to level up their care and provide better maternal and postpartum care for women. And just like any other condition, the earlier we can treat it, the better, right? Because it's just happened. So it's much easier to solve. And even just, of course, like lifting a baby or a toddler. I mean, that's adding a lot of pressure to your pelvic floor. So learning how to do that even correctly is just, you're leagues ahead later on down the road because now you're learning how to lift correctly after labor and delivery.
We really like listening to all the different aspects because sometimes we're not thinking of this, right? I would have never have connected pelvic health and after having a baby, all the symptoms and, you kind of always think, oh, it's just the hormones. It's just things that are happening to the body. But we don't talk about how to take care of ourselves. You talked about something very important, and Dr. Adler in Adlerian psychology speaks about, when you have a marriage, one of the most important thing is that closeness, the intimacy part. And often women have experienced discomfort and pain, and that really where you're not able to meet one another's needs. So let's talk a little bit about that intercourse. And let's talk about how pelvic health can improve that quality of life in all aspects.
So intercourse there's a Dr. Rachel Rubin, who is a sexual medicine doctor, and she has a quote that I have absolutely loved and incorporated, which is, sex is a high contact sport, right? And it really just does require a whole recipe to be successful. And I would say that pain with intercourse is one of the most common things that we treat in our practice, and that happens to all women. And I would say there's three main pieces of it. One, which is more like the superficial pain, which kind of feels like potentially skin dryness, right? After you have a baby or when you're in menopause, perimenopause, you get a decline in estrogen and other hormones, and that there's so many estrogen receptors down there that the tissue down there is more likely to get dry, right? And with intercourse, it's like going down a water slide without water. You need that area to be lubricated. So that's already part of the equation. Is it just dry skin, or does it kind of hurt a little bit deeper? And that could be more of muscles tightening. For example, we know that a lot of times women are too tight down there. And this is another huge misconception, right? What exactly is happening? It's not just weakness, it's tightness. And that to me is a big, huge light bulb. I hope people are listening going, wow, like I didn't realize pelvic floors can be too tight. I thought we only had to do Kegels to get it tighter. And so the people in our practice have pelvic floors that are too tight. Kind of a big deal.
Sounds like a big deal because I've only heard about Kegels. And I know when I was pregnant, my gynecologist said, it's going to be really important for you to do these Kegels. And then sometimes you don't even know what you're doing and how to do them right. So
correct.
Let's get into that a little bit and share.
We're going to get into Kegels. Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So Kegels. It has really been used, in my opinion, as just a complete throwaway term for women as any panacea for any vagina problem. And it's kind of just like, oh yeah, do Kegels, which is absurd because you can't even see Kegels, right? Like if I do a bicep curl, I can see my arm. The pelvic floor is a little bit more mysterious. What is going on down there? And in fact, research shows that half the women are doing Kegels incorrectly because no one's really evaluated how that they're doing it. And I see it all the time in the practice because we call it paradoxical. Somebody thinks they're squeezing and they're actually pushing down. So again, I don't think it's adequate healthcare. Telling a woman to do Kegels is not enough for us. So what does that mean? A pelvic floor, just like any other muscle group, needs to be able to contract and relax. Now, what that means is sometimes a pelvic floor can be what I call just on vacation, right? It's not really online. It doesn't know how to react when you're asking it to squeeze. And conversely, the pelvic floor can be too tight and gripped. Think of like a hand stuck in a grip position, or your TMJ patient or neck pain. That muscle group is gripped. The pelvic floor is a really easy place to hold tension. There's even a whole other category called vaginismus, which a lot of women suffer from and not a lot of the general public knows about. And that is basically, vaginismus is, I am ready to have intercourse. They're ready to have penetration. And the vagina or pelvic floor says, nope, not today. And they literally can't because the muscles are in a spasm position. You can imagine how frustrating that is. You can imagine how hard that is sometimes to consummate a marriage or to want to have a child. So this is a major deal. So breaking this open about Kegels as not the answer, but what is going on? Am I too tight? Am I too loose? How is the coordination of my pelvic floor?
What you just brought up, it's almost like, your knee's injured and you actually go to to get a facial. Often we are misdiagnosing situations that happen to women with mental health. Maybe you're so stressed. Maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe there is trauma. However, there could be a variety of things. So we can't really assume what might be going on, but getting a specialized opinion is a better way to go to have a long-term health that will help us to remain sane and to have that mental capacity where you're not thinking as a woman that there's something wrong with you. Perhaps a part of your body, there's something that's not aligned, and with this support, we can get the help that's necessary. If you like the content of this video, please don't forget to follow. And also, if you want more information, visit the website, yogipateltte.com.